Hello and g'day. In today's video we're going to make a flip up pocket with a journaling card. What I've done with this one is I've put it in a junk journal page. I've put it in the portrait position, but you can also make it for the landscape. To know what a landscape is, just think of the mountains. The mountains that meet the sky, the landscape goes across and the sky is above. So you'll always remember what a landscape is. So it can go that way or that way. Doesn't really matter. You just turn it around and put your design on whichever way you want to do it. All it is like a cardstock, a light cardstock or a heavy paper for a pocket with a hinge on the back. And you put that on your page or in a portfolio like this. So we'll hop to it and I'll show you how I've made my journaling card and how I've made the pocket. So first off, you'll need the pattern. If you hop along to my website, you'll be able to pick up the pattern for this. I've got 4 pages to print out, and as usual it's all laid out and color coded for you. Turn it into a template. It's much easier to use if you make a template. Once you've got your template made, cut it out. I've also got available the FCM and SVG file for those of you who've got an electronic cutting machine. So I've cut mine out. So just let's say that you've made your template, you've put your template down and just trace around the edge and then cut it out, right? And then you're at this stage. So when you cut out the pocket, you need to cut out a hinge as well. Once you're at this stage, you need to then score. There's 3 lines marked on the pattern where you need to score. Just follow the guide on the pattern. It's pretty easy, or come back and just watch this video. This is a 12 by 12 sheet of heavy paper. It's not cardstock. This is also a heavy paper, not cardstock. And this one here, I've used music sheet paper. This is out of a really old music book. This is from the 1895. And what I've done with this one is I got the page out of the middle and I just glued the 2 pages together. Where is that? So just put glue all over this page and then glued the 2 together and used it as if it was one sheet of paper. It's really good quality paper, this, and it turned out to be beautiful. So that's what I ended up with, and it feels quite firm. So that's how I made that one, and it's actually heavier than this paper here. So you can use cardstock, just not too heavy or it'll be too bulky for your journal. There's a couple of ways you can fold your flaps in ready for gluing down. You can put your ruler straight down the line here and get a scraper. This is my scan and cut scraper, and just crease that line there and fold it over. That's one method. The second method, again following that line down there so it's nice and straight. Use a stylus that's just got a little ball at the end of it, and score that line there with your stylus using your ruler and just fold that over. And of course the third line would be to pull out your scoreboard and score down there. And if you can't find a line that's right where you want it to be, you just got to wiggle it out a little bit, and do it gently because you don't want to push through and rip your paper. You only want to have a score line, which is more or less a guideline, to be able to fold that over and fold it down. The front of this is a little bit higher than the back, and that is so that the back never peeks through. Grab your hinge and score down the center of the hinge. That needs to be folded in half as well. I like to make my hinge in the matching paper as my pocket. And that's so that when it's here and on the back of here, wherever it is that you're going to be using it as a hinge, it matches. You can just see it ever so slightly at the back there when we put it on our page. See there, the grey, it just disappears. If it was a different colour, just use some distress ink. Sometimes the opposite side of your card might be a different colour. Just use the distress ink to match it in. Right, so we've got our two pieces ready. Now you've got to decide, if you're using a blank, you've got to decide whether or not you want to distress ink it, or whether or not you just want to stamp it with a pattern, or if you're going to use a printed pattern to start with, and then you wouldn't need to bother with stamping this up. So what I've done with this one is I've used a paper pack and I've cut it out, and this is quite firm cardstock. It's really, really about the heaviest I would go. I wouldn't go any firmer with this. And I've also found a piece of another card, and I'll show you this. It's pretty good. I used a 12 by 12 to cut out my pocket and my hinge and my tab. And I've got a little matte stack booklet, and I just went through and found another piece that, because they all match, this matches the 12 by 12, and I just pulled that out and used that to make my journaling card. So I'll show you how I made this little journaling card when I'm up to making the journaling card stages. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to ink with a stamp design and then do the edges. Now what I want you to remember is which way you're going to be facing your pocket, whether it's that way, because this pocket is a bit wide to put on an A5 page. So if you want to face it that way, you'll have to reduce the size of the pattern. So when you print it out, just print it out at a smaller page size, so it actually fits this way much better on this size page. That way it's a little bit big. Just remember that. So we're going to make it to go this way. So I'm going to unfold all my edges and get some pattern on this. And so I'm not going to get too fancy with the stamping because it's really only a demonstration for you today. So I'll just clean this up and I'll be right back. Now I'm going to distress the edges. So there's some of the edges that need distressing before we glue it down. So that would be this edge here and a little bit where you'll see that bit at the back. So we can go ahead and just do that bit there. Now I'm also going to distress the top of my hinge because the top of my hinge is going to sit here. So I need that to be coloured as well. When you flip up your pocket, the hinge will be seen. Distress the inside of your hinge. So you could do that now as well. because I've got this hinge double-sided colour, there's colour on both sides, it's good to go. If it was white on the inside, you could still do this because it would take away a lot of the white. All right, I'm just using art glitter glue. I use this on most of my projects. I do use the fabric style glue, but mostly on covers of the junk journals. So just art glitter glue today. It dries really quick, so it's good for these sort of projects. I'll just put a bit on each flap. Turn it around, whatever angle works well for you. I'm going to just push these flaps down and glue them in place. So because I got a flap on them, that's giving me that little bit of opening for the pocket. It doesn't lay entirely flat. You could always get that little flap there and glue it around to the back if you wanted to as well. Right, so now we've got to have the hinge glued to the back of the pocket. So if you can imagine, it's got to be on here and act like a hinge. So we're going to place it on here first, as high as we can on the pocket without coming up like that. We don't want to see it. If it went like that, it's not going to look as attractive. So we want to have it pretty level. Put some glue on the top part of the hinge. Pick this up, turn it over and glue it down this way. Have it level at the top. Can't see that. And just flatten it down. So we're getting exactly the same as what we've done here. So when I flip that up, that's what it will look like in my page. Now, wasn't that easy to make? If you had printed paper, it's even quicker because you don't have to take the step to ink the front of it. But if you really like inking and you've got a lot of your cling stamps, I like this too, because you can make this match your page and match your book. So this is a really good method. You've got that flexibility to use plain paper or light cardstock, or you can use a printed one as well. All right, let's make the journaling card now. Just as easy. To make the journaling cards, I've also got a printable. It's a double-sided printable. You don't have to do double-sided. You can print one-sided. You can use tea-stained paper. You can use faux tea-stained paper. This piece here I got from Tuesday Moriarty. She's made up it's a little, I guess you'd call it a kit or a printable. There are 20 different sheets to choose from. And I love it because I can go ahead and pick out whatever I want that will work with my design. And I like this one, so I'm going to make this one up for this one. So I've printed the doily on one side and the pink colour for this side. So there's a few different papers that you can use to make your journaling card. This one here is just white paper, so you've got no colours. Doesn't matter, just get some white cardstock and stamp it. Stamp some lines, use the corrugated cardboard to make your lines if you don't have a stamp. I just washi taped a little charm on that and ripped out a piece of design paper and put in the corner. The way this journal card works is that it's fold it in half and it lays flat. So you can continue your lines up here. You've got journaling space all the way down both sides. So there it is in the white. Here it is, the matching matte paper from this, and I done it like this. So I had my tab for the pattern. I'll use the white area so you can see. And then I put the tab at the top there like that, traced around it like that, and then just cut back out there like that. So I ended up with a journaling card made out of this particular paper. Right, so that's how I made this journaling card. And here's another one that I accidentally stumbled on. I have a pile of these Project Life journal cards. So I went and I grabbed one and I thought, I wonder if that fits. It fits this pocket perfectly. So that's what we call a happy accident. So if you have any of these, you don't even really need a tab on it. It fits in there, and because of the deep thumb hole, you can pull them out. So that worked well in there as well. So I will make up this one and show you what it looks like finished. So we'll come back to that one. So that's the journaling card we're going to make today. We'll make a single one and a double one. So let's hop to it. So you grab your printable and we'll cut it in half. Now your printable might have a border around it. I've got two printers. So I've got one printer that goes borderless, so it prints all the way to the edge, and I've got one printer that leaves a white border. If your printer has the white border, you do exactly the same. You just fold it in half, crease that there, get a nice sharp crease, and all I do then is I just take the tiniest slither off to separate my pages. I find that gives me a really easy way to cut my pages in half. So I've now got my two pages separated. So separate your pages. Saves me measuring, saves me fussing around. And you could see how small that slither was. It was very, very small. Don't do that. That was a silly move to rip my paper like that. So now I have to shorten my little page by that much because I pulled it and ripped it. I should have cut it. So once it's like that, we then go ahead and fold that in half again, the two sheets together. And I'm going to cut off a little bit of that because I have made that silly move of ripping that. So I'll cut it equally off both sides. And I'm just going to even up the bottom because there's a tiny little bit of creep. Because I've put one inside the other, I've got that tiny little bit of creep there from the inside page. Now is a bit longer than the outside page. So I'm just going to even them up and just take that tiny bit off. Now they're even. You could come in now and put a staple in the center, one there and one there if you like. But we're going to put a tab there. So you've got to remember that. This little tab has to go on here. You can put the colour on to match your card. There is a pattern for the tab, or you can use your tab punch. Right, so I'm going to use my tab punch because I want to use the black. So I cut one out. You don't need it to be double-sided, and it needs to be on cardstock because you need your tab to be firm. So cut your tab out, whether it be printed or black. So that's ready to go on. Work out where the centre is of your journaling card and just mark that. And work out where the centre of your tab is. So I'm not putting that on here yet. I'm getting ready to either sew or staple my pages together. So today I'm going to staple just to speed things up. And those of you who like to sew, all you have to do is mark where you want your stitch, about 1/2 inch there, 1/2 inch there, so it's hidden by that, and just sew it in, tie a knot in there. 1 stitch, 1 knot. So let's get this happening. I'll just make sure it's even. I'll put 1 staple in here. So work out which is your front and which is your back. Now when I glue this down, I'm only gluing the very bottom part of the tab, which is that part there. That's all I'm going to put the glue on, is the black bit that you see. I'm not putting any on the top because I need it to hang free. It hangs there, so I've got a tab to use. Then when I open it up, it's not going to interfere, so I can journal all the way down, or depending on how you want to journal, is you do it that way. So let's just put a little bit of glue on this very bottom part of the tab. It's marked on the instructions how you do it, and having this video to come back to is going to be really helpful for you as well. So you just want to have a little bit of the shoulder showing of the tab. You don't need a lot. That staple makes the tab a little higher than the stitch. When you put a hand stitch in it, it lays a lot flatter. Right, now let's just make the single one. We'll just use the pink on the back and this on the front. So I'm going to fold that down, cut it. So there it is, ready to turn into our journaling card. So I'll grab myself another tab, and see how I like the black. It gives a really good contrast. I've got just a note stamp here that I'm also going to use. Okay, let's get some ink on this makeshift stamp. Only gluing at the bottom of the tab. I'm still using the art glitter glue. So there's the booklet style, little journaling cards, and there's the single page style. Well, that was a fairly quick tutorial today. I know you'll all enjoy this sort of tutorial because they're just so useful. I know you're always looking for something to put in your journals or in your portfolios. So don't forget, the pattern's available on my website. I'm Donna from Junk Journal Ideas. Bye for now.
I was above the center of attention, but I'm not. I wish I didn't have to give in to the pressure. Oh.